first. So to start off, first we would like to thank our sponsors for the conference, AA Pediatric Medical, as well as the University of Calgary's O'Brien Institute for Public Health. For this session, the core ingredients, which will be based on comprehensive school health, we have two speakers. First is Sarah Halton, who is part of the Edmonton Public Health Dietitian team with Alberta Health Services. Sarah has worked in the area of school health for the past 13 years and is involved in resource development and initiatives that support healthy eating environments and education in schools. Matthew Mitschke is a health promotion coordinator at Alberta Health Services. He holds a Bachelor of Health Sciences in Public Health with a focus on health promotion from the University of Lethbridge. He's skilled in group facilitation, policy development and implementation, health education, knowledge translation, partnership development, communication, and evaluation. And now you may begin the session.
Thank you. Oh, Sarah, you're on mute.
Yeah, it helps to unmute. Welcome, everybody. I'm just going to pull up the presentation here and share my screen. And I don't know where you all are in the province, but here in Edmonton, it is a snowy day. So the benefit of virtual conference is that we can don't have to travel in the snow. So we have a 50-minute session here, and I'm just going to start sharing my screen. I hope Matt, can you do a quick check that you can see my screen? I've had a little trouble here.
Yeah, it just showed up. It's all good to go.
Perfect. So welcome and thank you for the introductions. We're going to get started this 50-minute session, and we're really excited to be here today. So to get started, I know you would have had the instructions for Zoom sent to you. And I just want to highlight a couple of things. So the mute, you can see on the screen here, you're likely familiar. We do ask that you keep muted except for the group discussions, and we are going to leave time at the end for questions. There's video if you'd like to comfortable with that. As well, you can use the chat box for questions, and we'll be running through that and managing that throughout the presentation. The last one is what I wanted to just make sure everybody is aware. For group discussions, you're able to speak to things, but you also, if you want to write, we're going to have space to write your ideas, and we'll be using Annotate, and that is under view options. So maybe as a really quick practice, if you guys want to just type in your favorite food on the screen anywhere here, it's fine if it looks messy. And just so I know you're familiar with that, so it saves time a bit later. So you use the text option. Okay. Whoops. Okay. I'm seeing some here.
I'm seeing a few. I'm seeing ours pop up, Sarah. I'm just wondering if the audience is able to get theirs to work as well.
Oh, yeah.
We'll give a few minutes just to test it out.
Yeah, just test it out. So when you're under the Annotate, you'll see different things. And if you use the text, that'll give you writing. If you want to draw, that's fine too. But at least you just know where that is for the discussions.
If you're still having trouble finding out where that is, again, just right at the top of your screen, view options, there's a drop down, and then just click the Annotate button.
Mm-hmm. Okay, here we go. Yeah, we're getting
box.
some.
Yeah, awesome. Eggs, banana
Yeah.
bread.
Perfect. Oh yeah, these are some good ones, hey? Okay. All right, I think we're definitely seeing some more. I'm hoping that everybody can kind of make sure this works if you see it there. If you do have troubles as we move on, you can just use the chat box, and Matt can help you probably through there while I'm presenting this section. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and clear this, and we're going to start the presentation beyond this. And I'm not, for some reason my computer's not moving forward. So we're going to start off just by highlighting the handout that we have for the presentation. So it is a resource list, and it's tailored to the different areas we're going to talk about today. With the time frame, we are probably not going to be able to get into, a lot of details of the resources. So again, you can look at their hyperlinks. You can look at them during the session or afterwards with you. We do also have an evaluation for a session that Matt's going to drop the link in the chat box now, as well as at the end of the presentation. So the recipe for today, or what's on the menu, we're going to look at 3 different things. We're going to look at the role nutrition plays in school through questions and discussions. We're going to look at the different components of comprehensive school health, as well as identify resources and share ideas to improve the healthy eating environment in schools. So to get started, we're going to use the polling feature, and I want to just get a sense of how you're connected to schools with the first question, and then we'll move from there to a few other questions. So you should have the question on your screen. So are you a teacher, support staff, elementary, teachers, support staff, junior, senior high, administration, community partner, parent? All right, looks like most of you guys are starting to. Okay, I think I'll take what I have here. So a wide variety, community partners definitely is the most, but we have, it looks like teaching or support staff for both elementary and junior high, which I just realized I was not sharing the results. So you can see that today. Okay, I'm going to ask another question for you just to get an idea of what it's like or things are like in your school situation currently. So the first statement I have is healthy food and drinks are accessible and available to students in my school. So absolutely, yes, but, or no way. The middle 2 are because I know COVID can change things. So you can kind of pick what one fits maybe with your situation.
Quite a range.
Let's see if anybody else has more time. Okay. You're seeing a few. Okay, I'm going to share results. So a bit of a mix here. Some no way, some absolutely, and some, yes, but certain situations may be currently there. And the next question I have for you is also another statement, and that would be, so health eating policies exist and are implemented in my school or division. Okay, seeing some responses here. Okay, so if we look at the results there, there's a no absolutelys or no buts, but there's yes, but certain situations, and then a no way. And the last statement I have for you guys, just to kind of get a sense of where the school situation is about community partners, which I believe a lot of you are today. So community partners support healthy eating efforts in our school or to the students. And again, I do recognize that in terms of community partners being actually in the school as much is probably not likely, but okay. So we got a mix here, yeah. Okay, so mostly just yes. And thanks very much for sharing. So that gives us an idea, maybe where things are at in your schools. And as we begin, we do need to recognize that we are in a pandemic, and that has changed things drastically in our schools, and especially the eating environment. As well, I think recognizing that making changes, even if they're small, can be challenging. So we're hoping we can share some ideas today. Schools are all in the same situation right now, and just what can maybe be done for certain aspects. So we know healthy eating is important, and likely you guys are the keeners here today anyways, but there's numerous benefits of healthy eating, and I won't go into all of them today, but we do know it's important for growth, development, as well as for optimal cognitive development. And we do know that there is an association with healthy eating and students performing better on standardized tests, as well as overall grade point averages. And ultimately, healthy students are able to learn better. And so just recognizing the importance of healthy eating in the schools is a value for sure. So how we're going to do it today is we're going to look at the different aspects of school health, and we've put them into the 4 components of comprehensive school health. I'm not going to talk a lot about comprehensive school health. It is an evidence-based approach to making health changes in a school, not just nutrition. And if you look on your resource, actually the second one there is a whole website about comprehensive school health if you want more information and details about how to do that in your school. So the components include, we're going to look at the social and physical environment. So again, what the eating experience, foods offered or sold, teaching and learning, so health eating education in the classroom, nutrition policies, as well as partnerships and services. And we're going to start off with the social and physical environment, but in order to have a baseline of our discussion, I want to know how it's going. So the public health measures have probably changed your food environment. So this is where you can either unmute or use your annotate and let us know kind of what's going on in your situation. If you're elementary, junior high, high school, I believe vending's not open, our cafeteria is open. What's the eating space like? What has kind of changed in terms of how you offer foods, if you have food programs. If anybody would like to share, feel free to unmute or to write onto the screen using annotate.
Just to chime in, Sarah, I know I've heard a lot of changes to the food programs at schools, so we're curious to what you're seeing in terms of those changes as well. And there's been a lot to experience and a lot of changes going on in those food programs. So yeah, feel free to comment, add some thoughts to the whiteboard or the chat box.
Hi, this is Allison. I'm in Medicine Hat.
Yeah.
And both my daughters are at a grade 7 to 12 school this year, and I'm the wellness champion parent for school council.
Yeah.
And I also run Community Food Connections Association in Medicine Hat, so that's why I volunteered to have that position on the school council. But the one good thing we've had this year is that at the end of last year, I guess our contract was finished for the cafeteria with like a large scale cafeteria, I don't know, company. And this year we have a Red Seal chef that is running the cafeteria programs at our 2 largest high schools in the city. And so that's very positive because I think it's a lot more like choose more often is happening a lot in the cafeterias. The one thing that I'm not really happy about though is that I still find, I think the cost is quite prohibitive because everything is about $5 like and to me I think that's too expensive for cafeteria food for kids if you want them to be making healthy choices. So I'd still like to see that price come down, and I haven't had, because this year parents, we can't go into the school or anything. It's making it a little bit trickier to connect with teachers and administration around stuff. I would like to talk to someone at the district and the school about pricing, why they've chosen that pricing, how it's being paid for, is it subsidized, that kind of thing. And if we can somehow bring that cost down a bit.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And looking into the community, even in terms of if there's other supports for ingredients or foods that could also be contributed to that as well. For sure, yeah. That's really nice to share though. I mean, it's positive, but then also challenging with that too. Anybody else? A few other there for sure. I'm guessing there's multiple changes that people are seeing. And so as we think of our current situation and moving forward, what can we do to make some changes? And so the next couple discussion questions are going to look at what can be done. And so when we look at the environment, I apologize. The question here, I just realized I cannot see, but is how might we influence positive eating experience? And so this is more about when the students are eating, you know, the time they get, what is it like? Is it a positive experience? Is the area able to be clean and accessed by everybody? Is it being able to keep the distance, kind of whatever kind of that looks like? You could also answer yes or no. Is everything going well so far right now? If there are no ideas, I'm just going to share a couple of things. So what we actually know is that eating spaces, if they're appropriate as well as positive social environment, that it does really encourage children to have healthy attitudes for food and for eating. We know what the physical environment does make a difference. And if you're in a place where, you know what, this is all we got, it's not ideal, it can really help to get students engaged. They can help make the decisions, take a bit more ownership. Making a pleasant eating space actually does make a difference. And so we do have the Youth Engagement Toolkit, which is a great resource if you're looking into how to engage students. And it could be with this or other type of initiatives in nutrition. Probably the biggest one that comes up with schools time and time again, and I'm guessing even more so with COVID, would be the time allotted to eat. And so we do actually recommend 20 minutes for eating for lunch, and that's after the children have sat down, so not the whole kind of time limit. And if you are serving a breakfast, we do recommend at least 10 minutes for that. So again, see maybe something to work towards, maybe you're already at that time, but just allowing enough time. And we do know for some schools, it's been successful to do like outside time or playtime before eating. And so the reverse lunch kit toolkit is also available with some of the ideas for that. Again, with COVID, I'm not sure how that will work right now. So as we move forward beyond just the eating experience of the kids, what changes could be made if you think of your school environment in terms of what foods are sold, what foods are offered, things available in the school, what changes could be made to make them healthier or more available? Are there anything you tried even specifically this year? Maybe, does anybody have the food program? Even looking at that, has anybody had some great ideas how to implement that this year, even thinking of online learners? Okay. All right, okay. So I'm gonna again share some ideas unless anybody else, again, you can unmute, use annotate. So one thing I'll say for sure is you want to get everybody involved. And the thing is, especially with nutrition, it's very personal. And I've seen with school districts and schools making any nutrition changes or policies, they got almost to the point of implementation and it has to go back to the beginning because people don't have buy-in or they don't know about it. And so any changes making in school, especially to food choices, you really do want to get everybody engaged. When you're looking at cafeteria, canteens, vending, meal programs, one of the first things is you have to assess what you have to know what to make changes. And you also have to have a common idea of what healthy eating is including. And so in Alberta, we do have the Alberta Nutrition Guidelines for Children and Youth. Many of you may be familiar with, has guidance as well as the new Canada's Food Guide in terms of what are healthy choices for schools. We also do have a healthy eating rubric and a school menu checklist to help with assessment. So even if you think it's going well, if there's any room for improvement, you can look at that. We do have a healthy marketing. So I know this is looking at what you were speaking to. I'm sorry, I can't remember the person's name that was speaking, but in terms of product availability, the placement, point of purchase, and actually the price all makes a difference in terms of accessing healthy food choices. And so we do have that vending toolkit. I don't believe vending is going on right now, but something to keep in your back pocket for the future. I'm going to turn over the next section to Matt.
Thanks, Sarah. I'll just take over presenting my screen here. If you can just let me know when it pops up.
Yeah, it's there.
Perfect. Okay. And everyone out there, bear with me a bit. I'm working off of a couple of screens here, just the nature of working from home and having kind of minimal access to the office resources that I usually do, but we will make it work. So the next area that we will explore is learning about healthy eating and that teaching and learning component of comprehensive school health, including ways that we can link nutrition to the classroom and beyond. So in the spring, learning was moved to home and to an online scenario. And now schools are, of course, back in, at least for now, and are being asked to kind of be responsive and may need to move throughout these multiple settings between at-home learning environments and in-school learning environments as we respond to the pandemic. So as we continue to weather these changes, incorporating messages about nutrition in the curriculum will be more important now than ever to help students learn and to understand the importance of eating well, both at school and at home. And I think it's important to also really consider equity and access to healthy foods when we're teaching about healthy foods, and we'll talk about that in a bit when we get into a little bit more into this topic. So I'm just going to try advance my slide here. So I'd just like to turn it over to you first and ask, how can nutrition be included in lesson plans? How have you seen things, students, your children being educated in lessons about nutrition since March and in this changing situation? So I'll invite you to, again, just to unmute or to open up the chat box or to use the annotate function. I'd like to hear your ideas about how nutrition can be included in lesson plans. So I'll give a long awkward pause as we get organized and accessing the chat box and the annotations. Just make sure that annotations are on. So think about, like, what creative ways have you seen nutrition linked in the classroom? Have you seen any activities sent home in that online learning environment, or ways that kids are interacting with foods? And why is learning and linking nutrition to the curriculum so important? And think about any resources that you're aware of that could help to link nutrition to the curriculum. So have you come across any neat resources or unique tools? Seeing something pop up in the chat box. So nutrition education resources available at Health Eating starts here. Thanks, Sarah. Give a few more moments if anyone wants to annotate. What are some things you've seen with how nutrition is being included in lesson plans? Oh, awesome. So giving seeds to students to grow vegetables. Yeah, so I guess with the timing of the COVID pandemic and stuff too, with door drops and things like that, you know, seed drops might have been possible. So certainly that's a pretty cool idea. And, you know, maybe possibilities to keep that going in the spring, over the summer, into the fall. And we'll talk about how teaching students and giving students the skills is an important part of learning as well. Okay. I'm just going to try and remember how to save this. Here we go. Okay. And moving along to the next slide. Okay, so when we talk about teaching and learning, we're going beyond nutrition education and just sharing knowledge. It also includes developing health skills for planning and preparing nutritious, tasty, and affordable meals. And it's important for students to understand how food is grown, prepared, and consumed. Helping students to find joy in healthy eating and an appreciation of healthy food and their traditions is also important. So when it comes to nutrition knowledge doesn't necessarily always translate into healthy eating habits. So when possible, try to include knowledge and skill building information. Some ideas include establishing cross-curricular links, like exploring nutritious foods and eating patterns from other time periods as part of social studies, or embedding it into math, like adjusting measurements for recipes or calculating serving sizes. So I know a lot of you are here from the junior high school teachers, so you probably might find ways to cross over those cross-curricular teachings with food into other subject areas as well. Probably some of you here are foods teachers, and so teaching those food skills is such an important part of establishing healthy eating habits as well. Now, keeping in mind, not all students are going to have the opportunity to learn and practice food skills at home. And those challenges of equity are things that are facing us right now in our schools, especially with access to foods as well. So thinking about what food students have access to. I'm just checking the chat box here as well. Just to see it flashing to make sure I'm not missing anything. Yeah, okay, I'm going to keep going here. So there are lots of ways to expose students to food experience and opportunities, such as fruit and vegetable preparation and tasting through cooking classes and demonstrations. But we also need to look beyond those skills and talk about appreciation and joy for healthy foods. So food is meant to be enjoyed and to nourish our bodies. And so we need to teach about that connection and build that appreciation for food and what it does for our bodies. And also to learn where food comes from, how it grows, and the role it plays in culture and celebrations, both our own cultures and around the world. And so food plays such an important role in teaching and learning. So when we talk about things like inviting elders to explain and demonstrate how food is grown, harvested, hunted, prepared, and feasted on in traditional ways, or doing farm tours or having farmers as guest speakers at our schools. And it's important to also consider the language that we use to describe food and how important that is to building healthy relationships with food. All food can be included in a healthy diet, so it's important to not label foods as junk foods or bad or unhealthy, but to consider the language we're using around foods. So there's lots of resources to support this. Our AHS Healthy Eating Starts Here has healthy eating lesson plans. There's our Sugar Shocker education kit, which teaches about sugar. The Junior Chef competition, which is a really cool manual. I think that's one of my favorites, just encouraging kids to cook and compete in a healthy way. And then the Cooking Club manual as well. Lots of recipes, very comprehensive manual with lots of food safety information. Okay, so I'm just gonna move along here. Here's just one example you'll actually find on our website. If we had more time, we'd have you write one of these today, but we just don't. So maybe you'll take it away, visit our website, or even try it in your classroom. This is an activity about writing a cinquain poem about food. And so there are lots of ways to bring nutrition education into your lessons, and healthy eating can play a role in all subject areas. So this is one where, if you're teaching about poetry and writing and literacy, you can incorporate food. So an example, here's the rule and then an example of a cinquain poem of 5 lines that do not rhyme are oranges. Round and orange, sweet, juicy, and sour. Gives me vitamin C. Fruit. So there you go. You can try that out, and of course, adapting these for certain age levels as appropriate. We do have a range of activities on our website for teaching about healthy foods, but also building those skills and that appreciation and joy of healthy foods. Okay, so next we're going to talk about policies that support healthy eating. And healthy school policy refers to the management practices, decision-making practices, rules, procedures, and policies at all levels that promote health and well-being and shape a respectful, welcoming, and caring, respectful, and safe learning environment. So policies shape the culture of a school community by defining things like values, beliefs, acceptable standards, norms, and expected actions. And policy exists at multiple levels, all the way from federal and provincial laws made in the judiciary, all the way down to our personal values that people use to guide their actions. And so we'll talk about policy from this broad perspective. So I'm just going to turn it over to you and give some more long, awkward silence. I'll pause and allow you to unmute, type in the chat box, or annotate. And I'd just like you to consider, how do policies help to shift the culture of healthy eating? So you may want to think about the role that staff play in implementing policies. You might think of areas of the school or events that occur where food is served. So, you know, do you have policies where maybe you special certain cultures or traditions throughout the year with food? And I know that's really tough right now, especially in the context of COVID-19. So, you know, thinking in a normal school year, but then have there been ways that those policies can still support a culture of healthy eating at school? So I'm just going to move the camera here. So they guide school decision making. They guide fundraising options in schools, maybe special events, nutrition education. Are there any examples that you're aware of? So, for example, you know, when we think of policy, we might think of really high level federal, provincial, legal policies, but what about those values you hold in your classroom or with your students? So is it a policy that students are involved in making decisions around food? It can be that simple. Or is it a policy that we have a fruit bowl available to students? And I realize that's quite difficult right now, again, with COVID-19. So again, how is that adapted to maybe single serve options, packaged options, incorporated with food safety? So we have encouraging administration to follow administrative policy from their divisions. And I'm seeing in the chat box here, policy has direct effect on the mental health, physical, and spiritual aspects of everyone, including our students. People do not realize how policy influences us all. Yeah, how true. Thank you, Donna. Oh, lots of really good ideas coming in here. I'm just going to allow them to keep flowing in. I'll also try to move things around a bit so that we can capture them all. Okay, I'm just saving this, and so I'm just, for the sake of time, I think we'll move along here. I'm going to talk a little bit more about policy. So let's see. All right, so nutrition policy is an important tool that can help shape the attitudes and expectations of staff, students, and families, and it can make healthy eating the norm at school. And many schools have nutrition policies with varying degrees of implementation. So we saw actually the poll question at the start, kind of that yes, but. So I'm thinking that's what probably a lot of you are speaking to is, yeah, we have a policy in place, which we do see across the province, but it's really hard to implement that policy and follow it as it's worded. And I'm sure if I gave you the time or allowed you to unmute and speak and encourage you to chat in the chat box, you could elaborate further on that as well. So whether you're just getting started or well on the way, some things to consider when developing and implementing healthy school policy include using nutrition guidelines and resources such as the Alberta Nutrition Guidelines for Children and Youth. Those are in your resource list. And considering policy in your food programs. So it can be a policy to have a food program in your school, but also policies that shape how food programs are run. Is culture and tradition infused into those food programs? And when possible, are we ensuring that there's high access to good quality foods, free vegetable and fruit programs? Are they accessible to all students? Do they have the potential to improve fruit and vegetable intake in school? Or sorry, these programs like have the potential to improve fruit and vegetable intake in school-age children and youth, and so we can leverage them to get those fruits and veggies into students' tummies and support that student learning. And as well as policies shape the school environment as well. So a school nutrition policy can encourage sustainable changes to the school environment and provide recommendations to consider for healthy eating in schools. So thinking about things like food and beverages, marketing practices, offering foods as rewards, healthy fundraising practices. And we have plenty of resources available on your resource list to support that, including healthy eating in schools and policy recommendations. So some really good stuff to get you started on that path. Next, and the fourth and final component or core ingredient of comprehensive school health and that approach to nutrition is that focus on partnerships and services that support healthy eating. And partnerships include connections between schools, families, community organizations, the health sector, and other sectors that support healthy eating in schools. So again, we're looking at those really broad partnerships. Of course, from students to families to the community and beyond. So think about, sorry, I'm gonna toss this question back to you, and I'll encourage you to annotate or type in the chat box as a response to this question. So how can community partners, or how have you seen community partners support healthy eating for students in school? So I know there's lots of unique ways that partners are involved. Can you think of ways that partners already support healthy eating in schools, or are you aware of any unique approaches that have been used with partners and community organizations to support healthy eating? How do these partnerships and services influence student choices at home, online, or in the community? And in what ways have schools recently partnered with community organizations to support healthy eating during the pandemic? So donations of food or funds for food, absolutely. Community partners are instrumental in that. Many people know the local grocery store or bakery that might be able to provide some donations. Now, I suppose the challenge is finding those healthy choices sometimes from our partners and those unique ways. So community partnerships have historically with schools and students also involved community gardens and those types of things as well. So thinking of your local community and the way that partners are involved can really be key to supporting healthy eating in schools. So I'm just going to move along. Oh, is someone unmuting? Okay. So building partnerships to support nutrition, they're essential for healthy eating in schools. Partnerships at all levels are important. Having ongoing support from leadership is key to supporting healthy eating and overall wellness in the school community. Staff and health champions in your school community. Of course, student leaders and parents and caregivers as well. When we talk about community champions, it's important to build connections and partnerships with those community champions, those people who value health and wellness in the community, and involving stakeholders like local suppliers, grocers, and health councils. Clear messaging to the community is key. So sharing your intent, your policies, your communications, your resources with the community partners, with parents, vendors, volunteers is so important to getting healthy eating into school communities. And sharing the school's healthy eating policies with students, parents, and community members who may bring food into the school on special occasions or support food service in your school now in the context of the pandemic. And sharing pictures and successes is another way as well. And fundraise with health in mind. So support students and community wellness with healthy fundraising initiatives that may go beyond food products. Schools might have many success with fundraising events that focus on activities or non-food merchandise instead. So things like greeting cards, flower sales, paint nights, etc. And when hosting a fundraiser using food, looking at ensuring foods sold align with nutrition messaging in the schools. So usually fundraising is a strong partnership piece in schools, and it's important to consider those healthy options. So some examples include things that might include fruit and vegetables, healthy spices and seasonings, cookbooks and families, healthy recipes. So there's lots of non-food fundraisers, and if you are going to use food fundraisers, consider what you can do to make things healthy with garden boxes, fruits and vegetables, herbs and spices, those types of things. Okay, so some resources to support this as well. Marketing healthy food choices, our healthy vending toolkit on the website, that's in the resource list, and some healthy fundraising in schools as well can support you in making these changes. So this is the fourth, partnerships and services, the fourth and final ingredient that we're here to talk to you about today. So I'm just going to pass it back to Sarah to kind of summarize for us and talk a little bit about next steps. You might be on mute there, Sarah, so I'll just give you a heads up.
Thank you. Yeah, and thanks for sharing ideas, everybody. So just tying it together, the comprehensive school approach really are the core ingredients to making changes and nutrition changes in schools. So we've talked about and had questions really looking at the different aspects within each of these components. And thanks for sharing ideas. And at the end, we're going to have question time. We'd love to hear if you have any questions or other ideas you'd like to share of any of these areas. One thing that we want to also include, although we have it at the end here, is just some things to consider. And so one would be the Alberta Context. So what we have available here, we have a provincial school food program. We've got Alberta nutrition guidelines. We have, health sector like myself and Matt that do promote healthy eating in schools and can be a resource. We also, there's grants available and things like that. So just kind of thinking what's in our province. We also have our healthy eating websites that are geared for Albertans. Cultural diversity is a huge one. And again, although we have it at the end, these are things to think about along the way with any type of thing you're doing or changes. As most of you know, food is central to all cultures and a lot of celebrations. And maybe this year it's not about actually eating the food, but even passing on, as Matt had mentioned, to any traditional Indigenous knowledge or practices or other cultures that are represented in your school community. The last one is really important, and in terms of health equity. And I love this little diagram here. I'm sure a lot of you have seen it, but I like it because it's apples, so it's talking about food. But I think with COVID, there's been even more kind of inequalities in terms of access to healthy food and food insecurity. And really in your teaching, in the way you do things, is thinking about where is everybody at and how can we make it a little bit more of a level playing field in terms of food and nutrition. Everybody does need to have the same opportunity to eat healthy food choices. We know it's so important. So I have a couple questions for you as we end today to think about maybe what's been shared or some of the questions we have, just to take with you what things you could do in your school, what actions you can make, and what tools and supports are needed to make changes. I am going to move on just because I do want to have times for questions. Here is contact information for Matt and myself. Matt also will be dropping the evaluation in the chat box again. But for the remaining time, we've asked you questions, tried to kind of discuss different aspects, but we would love to hear from you. What do you want to know? Is there anything we can help with into your schools or anything else you'd like to share with anything we've talked today? So you can use chat box, unmute if you'd like to speak to that. My question for you, does everybody feel comfortable using the new Canada's Food Guide and the Alberta Nutrition Guidelines in making those defining healthy eating? Is that something that everybody's got a good grasp on? Okay, that's good. I'll take that as a yes.
Actually, can I comment on that? I'm a really hard numbers kind of guy, and I use the old Canada Food Guide because I got a PD a few years ago of like physical representations of a quarter cup or 175 mLs, like it was the size of a tennis ball, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And the portion sizes and all the rest was actually a very good tool in the classroom because I use it to teach math, converting from imperial to metric. And of course, weight, right, and mass, and you can do all sorts of things with it. But with the new food guide, it just okay, half a plate has to be fruit and vegetables, and a quarter is going to be like whole grains. The other quarter is going to be, you know, God, I'm already brain dead right now, but
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
no, for sure. I know what you mean.
It's not a really,
Yeah.
it looks nice, but it's like, well, you should eat this. Well, that's nice. A good example,
And
but
you know,
quantities is not there.
yeah, and I'm glad, that's the reason I brought it up, and I'm really, really glad you brought it up, because the current Canada's Food Guide really is for personal use. The phase 2 still has not come out, and that's where they were supposed to be adding in measurements and things like that for building menus. And so one thing we're saying right now, so what you're doing, those measurements, I would still say go for that. So what we're saying in the meantime is use the Alberta Nutrition Guidelines, which are based on serving sizes from the old Canada's Food Guide. But taking the new Canada's Food Guide lens. So instead of, say, the Ford groupings, we're really going to have the protein groupings. But looking, if you're going to analyze some of those foods, looking at the Alberta Nutrition Guidelines, looking at the serving size, and really actually going from the old food guides servings. We're not sure if phase 2 is coming, but in the meantime, there is provincial meetings happening to actually establish exactly what you're talking about, recognizing that there needs to be guidance, especially for menu planning, or, you know, more for people that, you know, yourself, you like the hard numbers, right? And for public health messaging with Canada's Food Guide, it's good to be broad and just a general idea, but I hear what you're saying. So
yeah, and it's also for you know, teaching students like portion control, right? And it's cost control, because when I first started teaching this kind of work 20 plus years ago, it was like, you know, feed your face and that's it, right? Because you're teenagers and you can burn it off. Well, that philosophy's obviously changed, and kids are really keen, are like, well, how much is it, a certain amount of should I have? And then when you had that kind of tool taken away, it leaves the kids in limbo. So I'm kind of in two worlds right now using the new Canada Food Guide. I do projects with the new food guide, but also have the hard numbers of a recipe. You know what I mean? Like, you can't feel a recipe so much as you could, you know. So it's confused. It's not so much confusing as like, it's not, there's no clear direction, but I do like the idea of a phase 2 coming in, giving numbers to people, because and not just to teachers, but to students too, because they need to understand that.
Yeah, so there will be more information, whether it's interprovincial making up that or from Health Canada. So that is coming. So just so everybody knows.
Sarah, it's Matt. I'm just commenting and going along in the chat box here, and there's just a question from Allison, and Rhonda's asking for the same, and I'm sure many others are just looking for like models and successes of this happening across Alberta. And of course, you know, in a 50-minute presentation, that's tough to cover. We did have some embedded in, but just couldn't get to a lot of those today. But I did encourage them to email us as well with those questions. And I'm just wondering if you have any thoughts off the top of your head about, you know, where to find more successes and, you know, especially the nitty gritty of how schools go about making these changes.
I would say the Apple Schools website, they actually have some videos of success stories. I know some from Fort McMurray in terms of changes in school stores, as well as kind of some ideas for the classroom in terms of having, you know, celebrations focus on food, especially at, you know, less healthy choices. That would be a good one to look at. Yeah, again, if you want to email us more, the how-to again is nice, and learning from each other can be really good. So feel free to email us, we can send you more, but the Apple's Schools website might be a good one to start with. So 50 minutes is a really tight time and school nutrition is a really broad subject. Are there any final questions? I know we're kind of already a minute over time here. If not, I want to thank you so much for joining in this morning. Matt and I have enjoyed being part of this conference, and I know it looks like a lot of other exciting sessions last night and today and tomorrow. So if there are no more questions, we will be ending this session so you can have a bit of break before your next session. I don't know, Sandra, or if there's any other instructions that need to be kind of indicated at all.
No, good, things are good on our end here. We have put your emails and your evaluation links, so if people want to copy and paste those for their use. Thank you very much. And Bamero, I don't know if you have a closing.
Yes, just thank you very much, Sarah and Matthew, for holding this session.
You're welcome, and thanks so much for hosting us today. It was nice to speak with all of you.
Yeah.
Our
Enjoy the
pleasure.
rest of enjoy the rest of the conference, everybody.
We've got just a few people. I'm not sure if they're still wanting to ask questions or if they're just signing up.
Absolutely. We're here if anybody has some questions they want to ask. Oh, it's going down.
Yeah, it's going down quickly, but we can hang around.
I thought that was really good for 50 minutes and quite interactive and engaging. You can tell people are not used to the annotation feature of Zoom, and your little lesson at the start was excellent.
Okay, thank you.
To be that. So that was great incorporation. I was trying to put as many things in as I could for you to help you out.
And you
Yeah,
gave people
thank
a few options, even if they didn't want to annotate. We thought people would be a bit more engaged, but maybe people just find it a bit awkward online, like to jump in.
Yeah. And we did, this actually was an in-person presentation, like really divided into groups and kind of, more tangible discussions. So it is different online for sure. So.
No, but I thought it's good. Like for online, that was a good one. So I would keep going with that. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. See you.